So when it comes to paint and bodywork skills, I will be the first to admit that my level is sort of childish, amateurish, and angry. You know, that sums up my capabilities. But not when it comes to engines. When it comes to engines, I can lay down a pretty impressive paint job, one that'll last. And that's the biggest problem. You could spray your motor, grab the cans of this stuff, you know, engine enamel off the parts store, give it a squirt, and it looks beautiful sitting there on the stand. But after it's been run for about 15 minutes, it starts to like get all weird and stuff like that. And within a week or two, it's just coming off in big chunks, and you're left with like worse than if you hadn't painted it at all. So I want to go through the steps that I use to get a really nice, long-lasting finish on an engine. Right away, I know in the comments, let's beat the comments. We have so many experts in the comments, and I'm not saying that facetiously. We really do have experts in the comments who really do know how to do this stuff at a next level, at the highest level. And I get that, and I respect that. But this is for the average person, that his resources is the stuff that's in his garage and what he can go get at Home Depot for a couple of dollars and create a really nice finish. I know there are specialty paints out there. I know there's all sorts of different procedures and blah, blah, blah right on down the road. I get that, right? Do a video on it. But for this, like I said, average person, just pocket change, and wants an engine finish that's going to look good and it's going to last. So this is before I even go any further, there's like two different levels that I go with this. For an engine like this Slant 6 that's for Plan Z, I will paint the inside of it. So I'll paint the whole, the crankcase, any surfaces inside the engine. And why do I do that? Because it's very easy to see where the dirt is. I intend to take this engine apart many times, to change this, to change that, to play around with it. So every time I take it apart, I'm going to want to see if there's something coming apart. Like for instance, let's just say a cam bearing was going away. You'll see right away where there's, you know, material. And it's very easy to clean up. The best stuff to clean with is anything like this PV Blaster or WD-40. You give this stuff a squirt, you wipe it down with paper towel or a lint-free paper towel, and everything comes really nice. But I only paint the inside of these engines when I intend to go inside of it often. If it's something that's going to go out on the street and I'm just going to button it together once and not see it again, the inside of it for 5 years, I never paint the inside of it because there is a chance that it starts to come off over time. And what I use for the interior of these things is Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer. I know Gliptol is the thing. I get that. I know Gliptol is the thing. I've used Gliptol. But I've also had fantastic results with the Rusty Metal Primer. But you have to follow very exact procedures. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So that's what I do with this. This 383 for slag hammer now. I want it to look good, but this engine, we're building two motors for this car. The stroker motor will get painted inside, but this one is supposed to be just go it together, drop it in the car, and just drive it anywhere. So I'm not going to paint the inside of this. We are going to paint the outside. So obviously the first thing is to degrease and degack the motor. This one here just came from the machine shop, so it had a jet wash and all of the heavy stuff is off of it. It looks pretty good. But if you were to just start painting this right now, that paint will not adhere. Let me roll this thing over. The paint will not adhere to these sides. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you the first step. This is necessary. If you're going to paint an engine, this is necessary. I take a MAP gas torch, and any surface that's got to get painted, you hit with the MAP gas torch. Now watch this. You see the moisture that gets wicked out of the block? As many times as you wipe this thing down, you're not getting, remember cast iron has a very porous surface. So this part of the block right here, you could see the moisture and the solvents, whatever they used when they cleaned this thing, This is it wicking out. Here's the unprepped surface and here's the heated surface. You want to go over the entire block, any part of it that's going to get painted, you want to hit like that. And roll that moisture out. If you are going to paint the inside of your engine, that's the most critical step. Paint will not adhere to the crankcase of the engine unless you've gone over it with a torch. And you've really got to go over it. Just as you think that it's all like, you know, you see the moisture wicking out, where the oil's wicking out of the block, and then all of a sudden more will come out. Because like I said, the external parts of a cast iron block are very porous. It'll hold a tremendous amount of moisture, and the paint will not stick to it. So I'll go over the rest of this block and then we'll do the next step. Alright, so I've gone over the whole block with the torch, sweated out as much as I could, but you're not done cleaning it yet, because even though you sweated the moisture out of the pores of the block, that doesn't mean that there's not still an oily film. You know, the torch is only, let's say, you know, just expanding it so it comes out doesn't mean that it's cleaning off the surface. So we still have an oily film on the block. So what I use is acetone. I know there's tons of other chemicals out there. I've always just grabbed acetone. It works great. It evaporates almost immediately. And for this purpose, you can't beat it. So just soak down a rag with it. And you want to go over the whole block. And you might actually want to do it a couple of times. So any part of the block where you want paint to stick, you want to soak it down with this stuff, wipe it down really good. Now you see how fast it evaporates. Also, you might want to wipe down the surfaces that you're going to mask off. And that's the next thing we're going to do. So the oil pan rail, around the outside of the deck over here, all right, any place that you're going to cover with masking tape, wipe it down with the acetone also. Well, the next step is pretty self-explanatory. Mask off anything you don't want paint on. So we're going with our oil pan rails, the deck surfaces, our oil pump over here, timing chain cover, any place where the gaskets are going to sit. Now, how far you go with this really depends on what kind of paint you're going to use. So if you're going to spray bomb this thing, then obviously you're going to have to cover all of it. But I don't spray bomb engines when I care about it. Like if I don't care about it, I'll just grab a engine enamel and just it's done. But if it's something I care about and I want it to last, brush only. Forget about the spray bomb stuff. Brush on the paint. So because I'm going to brush it on, I don't have to go crazy, you know, making sure that nothing gets into the crankcase or into the valley or anything like that. Just covering the surfaces like this is plenty. And just follow the gaskets. I have no idea what's in this stuff that makes it so good, but I've been using it for decades and it has never let me down. If I care about a paint job on a motor, it gets a base coat of this, no matter what. Now, I know that there are companies like Eastwood that make specialty paints specific and primers specifically for this stuff, and I'm not knocking any of it. I've used it all. It's all good stuff. The problem is, it's Saturday night, 8 o'clock, and you want to get your motor painted and let it sit overnight to dry, you can't just like run to the store and grab a can of Eastwood, whatever, but you can run to Home Depot or Lowe's or Tractor Supply and grab a can of Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer. And this stuff is only like $11 a can. Available everywhere. So before I lay down any paint on an engine, and even if I'm going to spray bomb it, I'll still give it a brush-on coat of the Rusty Metal Primer. The spray-on stuff, I can't say whether it's good or not. I don't use it. Again, with the engines, strictly brush on the paint. So let's give it a coat of this. So that's it. One nice coat of this stuff, and get all your little nooks and crannies. Don't lay it on too thick. And then we're just going to let it sit. I mean, really, the best way to do this now is just let this sit really overnight. Plan on coming back tomorrow and giving it an actual paint. But I imagine after about 6 or 7 hours, you can come back and throw your color on it, which is what we're going to do. Let's let this thing sit and percolate, and we'll come back with some color later on. Well, now everything's had a respectable amount of time to dry, and it's time to throw some color on this thing. So at this point, you made a nice foundation, right? All the oil's out of the block. It's got a nice coating of primer on it. So you could rattle can this and probably get a decent job, but just my experience is rattle can paint is fragile. It'll always chip at this color is really easy. It doesn't deal well with gasoline and heat and whatnot. It turns bad. Rust-Oleum. I'm a Rust-Oleum guy. I've been a Rust-Oleum guy for years. But like almost any implement paint, a brush on implement paint will do, and you'll get a really nice finish out of it. So with this one here, we're going to go with the Rust-Oleum, the Gloss Sunrise Red, which is the same color we painted the slant with. It's a really nice bright color. It's got a lot of life to it. And it stays, with a lot of life. It stays shiny. Originally we were thinking about doing this hemi-orange. If you're going to do hemi-orange and you want to brush on Rust-Oleum, try to find Omaha Orange. It's not an easy color to come across. I have a can of it back at the house, but it's like an exact hemi-orange. So Rust-Oleum with Tremclad, they call it Tremclad up in Canada. Omaha Orange would be the one you're looking for. And the blue, there's a Gloss Royal Blue, I believe they call it, which is really close to Ford Blue in the Rust-Oleum. And I've used it on Chrysler motors, and it looks pretty good. It's not exact, but we're not restoring cars here. We're just trying to clean them up and make them work right. So, I mean, that's it, man. Just basic Rust-Oleum. And we'll give this thing a nice coat. I'm bad with this. There's always going to be runs. I have no skill. I have no patience, right? But from under the hood, it looks okay. That Eastwood makes some really nice engine paints. I've used them in the past. Customers' engines, they did a restoration on a car years ago. I used their Hemi Orange, and it was really nice. It was really nice. But you can't beat the price or the availability of Rust-Oleum. The price, give me a minute and I'll go over this with you, because that's one of the surprising elements of working with this stuff. Happy little engine block. happy little casting numbers. Let them pop and shine. There you go, happy. Here's my runs. I'm one of those people, I just cannot modulate between like what's a light coat and a heavy coat. You really got to be an artist. I'm so not an artist. Well, that's the first coat down. It'll flatten out as it dries, and I'm going to let this sit now for a day or two and come back and give it a second coat. But I think it looks pretty good. Yeah. So, here's one of the best parts about this whole thing, the cost involved. So, yesterday I went to Home Depot, and I bought the quart of this paint, quart of the rusty metal primer, the thing of acetone, and the masking tape. And the bill was $32. So here's how much paint we used on that first coat. And we used approximately the same amount of the rusty metal primer and very little of the acetone. The total cost of the material consumed in this job is about $1. Think about that, right? There's enough here to paint 5, 6, 7, 8 more engines. Not that you'll actually do that, I'm just saying. The cost of doing it this way, the actual cost of the material doing it this way, there is no cheaper way to do it. And there's really no nicer, longer lasting finish that you're going to get than this. You'll come back and see this motor in a couple of years, and if you clean it all down nice, wipe it down nice, it'll look just like that. So, yeah, I hope you got something out of that. We got a pretty motor out of it. I'll see you tomorrow.